Hello, my name is Christopher Columbus. Many of you know my story, and if not, read a history book. After speaking with a man from the future by the name of Alberto Arroyo, I found that my advice as a world famous explorer can help those in the future. Here's a brief review of our discussion. A great question that sparked conversation was, why did I do what I do? Why did I travel the world? The first thing that came to mind was my passion. Since a young child, I was very passionate about the world. If I never had that passion about traveling, when the time came to go west, I would never have been prepared. Alberto called his passion his craft, in which I found very unique, as a craft is something that can be mastered over time, from sailing the seas to crafting coffee, as he explained to me. One thing I encouraged Alberto to do was to continue to perfect his craft, as when the time comes, he, like others who perfected their craft, will be ready as I was. One challenge we discussed were the modes of travel and how one is impacted from travel. As a sailor, we encountered way more harsh travel conditions than those Alberto faced on a plane, which I found very funny. When sharing travel stories, Alberto appreciated quickly how modes of travel could really impact morale and decision making as a leader. Though jet lag sounds tricky, being seasick is way worse. Another great question that sparked deep conversation is how leaders overcome little storms within the day's struggle, which I have know a little bit about. I told him during storms, big or small, take a step back, see what your best options are, make a decision, and rely on your team and crew for help. As a great explorer, I never went on an expedition alone, and you cannot overcome the daily challenges of life alone. You need others around you for support and clarity. The crew and myself went through storms of emotions, spiritual battles, mental battles, and the obvious battles of the sea that were brought upon the day. The days, as we discussed, are many storms in various forms, and Alberto and I spoke on what taking a step looks like, from taking a deep breath to journaling, and what weighing your options look like, the pros and cons of all outcomes, seeing which mode is the best, and making a decision you are confident in yourself, and then trusting your team to support the move that you make, the final decision. One story I felt Alberto had shared with me around how he made a mental decision to own the day after several days of being off, as he described them. He claimed that on this day in particular, whatever little storms or hurdles that would present themselves, he would not let impact his leadership. I loved his approach and could not help but relate. After several days of not feeling like my voyage was going anywhere, I was very nervous about the outcome, and very nervous about continuing with the voyage itself. It was here where I followed my exact plan and relied on my other sailors to keep the expedition going. Two things I felt stood out here as leaders. We are all humans and we are all bound to make mistakes, be it on the sea or the land, but it's how we respond to these mistakes is what builds character. Number two was to own is to be confident, as confidence is key and what pushed me through the famous funding of the Voyage West. Many times I felt like I wouldn't get enough money or I would give up after several didn't want to provide for my vision, but I never lost sight. I always believed that there was more west than any could ever manage. The final challenge me and Alberto discussed was how to find time to relax and decompress as a leader. On a ship, this proves difficult, but one thing we discussed is how journaling helped myself gather my thoughts. In fact, I recall the toughest of times being easily eased by my extensive journaling to clear my thoughts. Alberto recalled as how this has helped him during his tough times in the week. With all the modern technology in the future, writing proves more difficult now more than ever. I explained that the act of writing helps clear the brain and the body and also realigns themselves, helping in the decompression of one. Thank you.